Our directions read, we're going to use the journal below, and I'm going to guide you through the following examples. So you can see that we have transactions the 23rd to the 30th. Our instructions on the very bottom do tell us to journalize a transaction for April 23rd and 27th. It gives me the source documents made abbreviated as follows: C, check; R, receipt; S, sales invoice; T, cash register tape. And then notice instruction number 2. It says prove and rule the journal. And then it tells you to carry the column totals forward to page 2 of the journal. So we know that we have to have totals at the bottom of a page for a month. But sometimes 1 month may go on more than one page, and how do we deal with that? So we know after the 27th, we should be at the bottom of our journal page, and we have to total and prove. And then we need to go through and prove our cash. And proving our cash is another awesome way to see that we've done things correctly. So let's journalize the first transaction. April 23rd, sold services and account to L. Rowe, $375. I have to put the date in the 23rd because that is a given. Now, source document. What is the source document, Libby, for this transaction? Yes. So what does that tell us? What do we have to affect, Libby? Nope. What type of invoice is it? Yes, so we have to affect sales. And we only have one column for sales, correct? So we know half of our transaction already. We know that sales is going to be credited. So then the other account that we have to affect is going to be L. Rowe. And this is where I know students are struggling a little bit. Is it receivable or is it a payable? Okay. We are going to be receiving money from L. Rowe. So I'm going to have to type in accounts receivable, L. Rowe, because notice they give you both options. So anytime you have a source document of an S, it will be accounts receivable and cash. So I'm going to do a general debit of $375 and a sales credit of $375. The 27th, paid cash to owner for personal use, C7. So Cody, what is our source document for this one? Source document for this transaction. So what does that tell us, Cody? It's a check. And if it's a check, what account am I affecting? Cash as a? Correct. Because if the source document's a C, cash, credit, okay? So all of those C's go together. So we know that cash is going to be credited. Then we have to figure out what account we're going to be affected. Aaron, what account would we be affecting? Norm Dermer drawing. And how do I know that? They don't give me in the instructions all of my account titles. But if I look at transaction number 1, it says Norm Dermer Capital. So if he is the owner, he has the capital account. So I would know that Norm Dermer drawing is going to be the withdrawal account. So I'm going to do C7. So I'm going to do a general debit for $500 and then a cash credit for $500. Okay, so for totals, I am now to the last line here. I get it's line 15, it probably would be longer, but they just want us to know how to total a page. So when I put totals here, I am not going to put the word totals because totals will mean that you are actually done with the page. If you put the word total, it actually means you're done for the month. And are we really done for the month of April? No, but we need to put a total on the page. So at the very bottom of this page, you're going to put the last date of the transaction we recorded. So the last date of the transaction would be the 27th, okay? So I'm going to put the date of the 27th. And then I'm going to write the word carried forward. Because I'm going to take these numbers and I'm going to carry them forward to the next page, okay? Not using the word totals. The word totals only comes at the end of the month. Now, if we are using a check mark in the account title, or if we're carrying forward, we need to put a check mark in the post reference. Again, I'm going to spend a whole chapter just on this column. Just know that. Now, this is where you get your handy-dandy calculator out, and you have to do the math. Easiest way to get your calculator up is click on Start in the lower left-hand corner and type in CALC. Okay? And then really use your calculator and add it up. That's what I'm going to have you do right now. Everyone needs to do this. Okay? Calculator, add up your debits right here. 375 through 500. Put your number down. Add up your credits. You might be able to do that one without a calculator. For general credit, then do sales, cash debit, and cash credit. This takes time. So use your calculator and add it up. If you have a calculator that you physically have in front of you, you can use that instead of the computer one as well. Once you have your totals done, down here in the very bottom, below the next page, there is this area right here. What you need to do is you need to put in your total for a general debit. Now, should there be anything here for sales debit? No. Okay? And how about cash debit? You don't need to put a 0. You would just leave it blank. Okay? So put your debits here and then get your total for your debits and then put your credits there and put your totals for your credits. Now, do your debits and credits equal? Don't forget, you have to have nothing in sales debit. You don't have a total for sales debit. It's there because they have our columns and they have debit and credit for each one. So sales debit should be left blank, but sales credit should have your number on the right-hand side and then add down. So Taylor, you should have nothing in sales debit. You don't have a column for sales debit, so that's blank. You should have something in sales credit, though. Libby, when you added up your total for your debit columns, what number did you get? 9,215? Hang on. And then, Libby, if you added up your credit column, did you have the same number, 9,213? Okay. So when I look at my journal page, my carried forward numbers, what they did on the very bottom here after our second page of our journal is they gave us a spot to go through and prove that our numbers equal, our debits and our credits. They are not always going to give you that spot. Eventually, they're going to give you a journal, and they're just going to go through and just expect you to prove your journal page and just know that it equals. They're not always going to give you that little spot to do the math. And if you don't do that, you are going to lose a lot of points. Because I'll tell you what, if your journal does not equal, that means somewhere, somehow, you've made a mistake. Just like checking the back of the book on a math problem for the odd ones. You know, if you don't have the right answer, you go back and double check your work to figure out what's wrong. In a journal page, if your debits and credits don't equal, somewhere there's a mistake. It could be adding. It could be you have them in the wrong columns. So we are done with page 1. We don't have any more room. So we have to start page 2. And when we start page 2, right here on the left-hand side, I have to put in the date. And the month that we are doing everything in is April. So we're going to do April, and then the date is always going to be the last date of our last transaction, which is also the same date for carried forward. So I'm going to put the 27th. A lot of people are going to get that wrong. And now I don't write carried forward. I'm going to write the word brought forward because I brought this from another page. So on the bottom of the page, you write carried. On the top of the page, you write brought. And just like carried forward, on the post-reference column, you have to put a V or a check mark. And then all I need to do is put my numbers from the bottom of the previous page at the top of the next page. Now, this is important. After you get those numbers there, don't keep typing. Don't work on the journal transactions. I need you to understand why do we do this. Okay? Why do I have to take the numbers from the bottom of one page and put them on the top of the next page? I talked about it already, Jared. Okay. When we first introduced journals, I said that we have a separate page for every what? Month. I said, is it important for a golf course to know its sales this July compared to last July? And if I look at the total of a journal on July 30th, July 31st, got the right month, last day of the month, compared this year to last year, that is good information for me. So I need monthly totals so I can make decisions about my business. If I don't, at the bottom of one page, do carried forward and the top of the next do brought forward, I would then have to go through in order to analyze my data to make decisions, go through and add up numbers. In this place, I'm going to be very easy to look at one spot. If I look at my very bottom totals for a page, I can say what my sales were for the month. That's important decision making that anyone in business would want to be able to know how to do. So as somebody working in the financial aspect, we go through and do that to make it easier for us to make decisions. So now our next set of directions is we're actually going to go through and journalize the rest of the transactions. So our next transaction reads, we did instruction number 3. We're on instruction 3, use page 2 of the journal to journalize the rest of the transactions. So we have the 29th, receive cash on account from L. Rowe, $300. So the date is the 29th. Source document is what, Chris? R3, and what does R stand for? Receipt. So what did we receive? Yes. So is cash going to go debit or credit? Debit. So we know because of the source document that cash is being debited. So we know the other account, therefore, would need to be credited. Would you agree? So I like to help you figure out the easy way to figure out one of them, so then you just have to think about where the other account title is. So, Chris, what's the other account title? Accounts receivable, because we're actually going to receive money. Accounts receivable, L. Rowe. And then we're going to do R3. And we're going to do general credit of $300 and cash debit of $300. The 30th, receive cash from sales, $544, T30. So T30, T stands for cash register tape. And if I look up, yesterday we went through and did this cash register tape on line 8. Remember, cash register tape numbers are not sequential. It's not going to go T1, T2, T3, T4. It goes for T and the date that you're recording it on. So this date is the 30th, so we're going to have a source document of T30. So my two accounts that I'm affecting, receive cash from sales. Cash in sales. Do we have a special column for cash? Special column for sales. Check mark goes in the account title section. And if I put a check mark in the account title section, I put a check mark in that post reference column. I only have one column for sales, so it's got to be sales credit, and then it'll be cash debit. Instruction number 4 tells us to prove page 2 of the journal. Now, in order to prove the bottom of a journal page for the month, we know we don't have any more transactions for April, right? Your totals are always going to be the last day of the month. So this means you need to know how many days are in each month. Okay, at any given point, you have to be like, how many days are in February? How many days are in September? Typically, you probably know the month that you're born in, or maybe the month before, but you may not know all of them. Do some of you know the song? There's a song. I don't know the song. Is it? How many days are in each month? I know you know the months, but how many days are in each month? Because this is April. How many days are in April? Okay. But some of you may know and some of you may not. And this is my trick for you. Okay? In order for you to know how many days are in the month, I use my knuckles. Okay? So what I do is I start on my knuckle and I say the month. I do January. And then I go in between February, March, April, May, June, July. And then to go back, you have to start on that knuckle again. August, September, October, November, December. If it lands on the knuckles, it's 31. In between is 30 except February. Okay? So again, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, knuckle again, August, September, October, November, December. That's a way that you can easily tell. Start on your knuckle, and then when you go back the other way, you have to do that knuckle again. Okay? Or you just remember, I don't remember all the months. I remember my birthday month, and I remember October has 31 because of Halloween. Okay? So if you just remember it, that's fine. But if you pick the wrong date, it will be wrong. Okay, so how many days are in April? 30. So we have to put the date of 30 here. And now we're really done for the month. So we're not going to write carried forward or brought forward. I'm going to really write the word totals. And guess what we have to do? Add. Now, please notice, you are not going to add page 1 and page 2. You are only going to add page 2. And you are going to add lines 1, 2, and 3. So general debit, you should be able to do without a calculator. It should be 4,958. Make sense? Bet you can do general credit also, 2,555. Okay? So you are only adding page 2, but you have to include your brought forward numbers from the previous page. Once you are done here, go down here on your Prove 2-page journal and then prove this section also. Okay? And the reason page 2 is easier to add because there's less numbers there. But let me tell you, one of the most common mistakes that I see that happen on page 2. Page 2 doesn't equal because when I would take my numbers from the bottom of page 1 and put it here, I maybe might write the wrong number in. Okay? So what does that mean? On the bottom of page 1 on general debit, it says 4,958. Maybe here I put 4,985. Same numbers, but out of order, and that's called transposition. That happens a lot. So if you're finding that page 2 does not equal, the first thing I would double check is, are the totals on the top the same as the previous page? And it's really easy to make a quick transposition. After the transposition, if you've checked and everything's good there, please make sure that you have the correct debits and credits. There was only 2 transactions. So I was going through and I got page 2 of the journal. I have totals of 10,057. Libby, did you get that? Excellent. Now the last thing that we have to do, we know a business is writing out checks. Would you agree? So we know at any given point we should be able to check our check register to see how much cash we have. Okay, so in our instructions, this is the hardest part of this chapter. People screw it up because they don't understand how to do it. So I'm giving you that as a heads up. So if you're not listening, you're going to be lost on this. Instruction number 5, it says right here, prove cash. The beginning cash balance on April 1st is 0. The balance on the next unused check stub is $1,526. When I look here, I have a little formula that I need to use. Cash on hand at the beginning of the month, what did they tell us it was? 0. What other thing did they tell us right away? Balance on the next unused check stub? Look right here, the very bottom one. Checkbook balance on next unused check stub. So that is $1,526. Now, I'm going to go through and look and read these words. Do you see where it says plus right here? Guess what I have to do? Add. But what am I adding? Total cash received during the month. What column is that? Cash debit, because cash debit is what we use for increasing our cash account. So I'm going to take my cash debit total of $5,099, and I'm going to put it there. Now, right here it says equals total, because what did it say? Cash plus equals. So I'm going to take 0 plus $5,099. That's going to give me $5,099. Now, in the next column, it says less total cash paid during the month. What column would that be? Credit. So I'm going to put in 3573, cash credit. Now I physically need to do the math. 5,099 minus 3,573. What does that give me? 1,526, right? If I take this minus these two numbers, subtract, gives me 1,526. Do these two numbers equal? That's your happy dance. Woohoo! We did it. Cash proofs. What you do not do, don't do it, is just take this number and put it there. That doesn't really prove anything. We have two ways right now on this assignment to make sure that we've done things correctly. Debits and credits equal at the bottom of a page, and then at the end of the month, you prove your cash. Because what could happen is, when I journalize the transaction on the 29th up here, on the 29th accounts receivable L row, what happens if I actually put in another 0? Put in 3,000. Would my debits and credits equal? If I put 3,000 here and there, my debits and credits would equal. Is that really the amount I was supposed to receive? No, because I only received $300 from my customer. So therefore, by having us at the end of every month prove our cash, it's another way of checking to make sure we didn't make a mistake. So we check to make sure that the amount of cash we have in our journal is equaling physically the amount on our checkbook. Okay, so I'm going to change the due date on this one, but you are going to need to complete the on your own.